They said it wasn't a declaration of war, just a formal warning. A message wrapped in arrogance, sealed with the symbol of the Galactic Council, and delivered like we were their disobedient pets. No army in orbit, no laser blasts, just words. But sometimes words are worse than bullets. I still remember the transmission. I was sitting in the war room bunker underneath Nevada, the walls sweating from old insulation and nerves. Generals stood like statues around the table, pretending this was just another diplomatic flare-up. But I wasn't a politician. I wasn't trained for diplomacy. I was trained for retaliation. The hologram flickered on. A tall, silver-skinned alien stood at attention, his voice slithering through a translator. To the leaders of Earth, you have advanced too far too fast. Your aggression, your nuclear expansion, your refusal to submit to the Council's terms is unacceptable. You have 10 cycles to comply or be erased. 10 cycles. Their time, not ours. Some alien measurement of days we barely understood, probably on purpose. That was their way, always keeping us off balance, always dangling superiority like a noose just above our heads. The room was silent after it ended. Even General Weller, the one known for chewing out captains with the fury of a storm, just stood there, jaw locked. "Erased?" I finally said, my voice low, controlled. "They want to erase us?" The president, old and tired but still with a spine, leaned forward. "Captain Thorne, what would happen if we don't wait 10 cycles?" I looked around the table. No one objected. Everyone wanted someone to say it out loud. So I did. "We hit back before they think we're hesitating. No waiting, no talks, no deals." A few raised eyebrows. One general shifted in his seat. Weller spoke first. "You're talking about preemptive war, Thorne. You're asking us to light the match before they even draw their weapons." I nodded once. They already lit it. That message was the spark. If we sit and talk, we die polite. That was the moment it changed. See, what the Council didn't understand, what they never really grasped, was that Earth was forged in war. We're not a species that folds under pressure. We don't crumble when threatened. We evolve. We sharpen. And when cornered, we don't run. We strike. The president gave me a look, the kind that says, "God help us all." Then he nodded. "Take the Black Fang fleet. Mobilize now. Target their relay hubs. Cut off their voice first." The Black Fang was unofficial, built in shadows, funded off books, manned by soldiers who'd seen too much and didn't blink anymore. I commanded it because I didn't care about peace treaties. I cared about revenge. And the Council had just made it personal. Within 36 hours, we were airborne. No press releases, no warnings. We moved like ghosts through dark space, engines humming with the quiet promise of death. Our first hit was a relay station on the edge of Council territory. Nothing huge, just a floating comms satellite tethered to a low moon outpost. But it was the Council's voice box in that sector. Without it, their orders couldn't spread, and their panic would. We didn't ask them to surrender. We didn't hail them. We arrived, locked weapons, and turned it into a funeral pyre. When the flames cooled and debris drifted like ash through the void, I stood at the observation deck of the lead ship, watching the aftermath. My second in command, Carter, walked up beside me. His voice was rough from years of breathing recycled air and watching men die. "You think they'll come after us now?" I didn't answer at first. I just stared out at the stars, the Council's pristine empire spread out in the black like an untouched canvas. "They thought Earth would kneel," I finally said, "but they forgot we crawled through our own blood just to stand. We didn't come out here to ask permission." Carter didn't smile. Neither did I. Because this wasn't just war anymore. This was vengeance. The Council didn't respond right away. That was their first mistake. They underestimated how fast Earth had changed. They still saw us as a backwater species, aggressive, emotional, unpredictable. They were right about the aggression, but they thought it was a weakness. It wasn't. It was the reason we survived long enough to reach the stars in the first place. The second hit came 72 hours later. This time we didn't just silence their relay. We took their refinery at Bajara 4, a high-gravity mineral station that supplied nearly 30% of the fuel for Council patrol ships in that quadrant. I didn't just want to send a message. I wanted to bleed them slowly, one artery at a time. We hit fast, surgical. My team called it the Butcher's Run. We dropped in, vented the station's atmosphere, disabled escape pods, and uploaded a single message before we left. 4 words. Earth does not kneel. After that, the Council finally woke up. Their response wasn't tactical. It was desperate. They deployed a fleet to the mid-rim colonies, cutting off trade routes, hoping to choke us economically. Maybe they thought Earth would fold under pressure, that fear of starvation or isolation would break our morale. But they forgot something vital. We were already used to surviving on less. Earth wasn't a utopia. It wasn't a gilded city floating in the clouds like some of their high-caste worlds. Our history was soaked in ration lines, blackouts, and rebuilding after every war we'd brought upon ourselves. You threaten us with discomfort? We call that Tuesday. Still, they weren't entirely stupid. Their fleet was massive. 3 Dread-class cruisers, 17 strike ships, and a blockade so tight it made communication near impossible beyond the Mars ring. The whole mid-sector went dark. Civilians panicked. Colonies started rationing oxygen and fuel. The news feeds back on Earth screamed headlines about surrender. Senators begged for diplomacy. But I wasn't listening to them. I was listening to the soldiers, the men and women in steel bunkers, breathing recycled air, loading rounds into old rifles because they knew what was coming. The people who didn't care about political theater, just survival. Carter slammed a tablet onto the war table, his face twisted in a mix of fury and exhaustion. They locked down Triton, sealed the port with a kinetic net, and started scanning every incoming vessel. We've got 4 freighters stuck there, supplies, medgear, evac ships, even families. I looked at the data. The net was a death trap. You couldn't fly through it without being vaporized, and you couldn't shoot it down without exposing your fleet to retaliatory fire from the cruisers sitting right behind it. So we didn't fly through it. We flew under. The plan was insane. Underground tunneling through Triton's crust using retrofitted asteroid drills and mining rigs. It would take days, maybe a week. But if we pulled it off, we'd crack open a path under the net and sneak our ships out right beneath their noses. We called it Operation Graveworm. The name fit. I handpicked the drill teams myself. No rookies? All veterans from the Martian core siege. The ones who'd crawled through frozen hell with nothing but plasma cutters and nerve. As we moved in, I kept thinking about the Council's arrogance, about how they expected us to ask for mercy, about how they had the nerve to issue a threat like they were gods, and we were just another species to keep in line. They forgot what humans do when backed into a corner. We dig, we adapt, and then we kill. The Graveworm Op was dirt, sweat, and silence. The Council ships hovered overhead, their sleek hulls gleaming like knives. They scanned the surface constantly but never looked beneath it. That's where we lived now. In the dark, crawling through volcanic rock and poisonous dust like demons rising from hell. We broke through the final layer of crust 7 days in. I remember the moment, alarms screaming, steam blasting out of the shaft, and then silence, just the hollow thud of pressure equalizing. Then the message came. Path clear. Freighters moving. It was like holding your breath for 7 days and finally exhaling. All 4 freighters lifted off, slipped through the hole, and ghosted into the void before the council even noticed. By the time their scans caught on, we were gone. Not a single civilian lost. That win cost us, though. One of the dig teams got caught in a gas pocket collapse. 18 men died instantly. Another 12 from suffocation before we could get them out. I stood there after the op, hands covered in ash and sweat, staring down at the name list. No medals, no speeches, just names and silence. Carter handed me a flask. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. We buried them in the tunnels they carved, sealed with plasma fuses and their unit emblems scorched into the wall. That night, I recorded a message. No politics, no grandstanding, just me. This is Captain Thorne, Black Fang Division. You threatened Earth. You sent warnings. You made demands. We didn't comply. We retaliated, and we will continue to retaliate. You call us primitive. You call us reckless. But let me be clear, this is survival, and we are very good at surviving. You say Earth is out of control? I say Earth is just getting started. I sent it through every hacked relay we had access to, and I made sure it reached them. I wanted them to hear me before the next strike. The Council's next move was brutal. They targeted the Vega 9 orbital hospital. No defenses, just med techs, patients, and volunteers. It was technically neutral ground, marked with the Blue Cross sigil recognized across every major species alliance. They hit it anyway. No warning, no demands, just a barrage of high-velocity impact shells that turned the station into a burning carcass of twisted metal and drifting bodies. Over 600 dead. A third of them were children. They never claimed responsibility, of course. No signature weapons, no official statement. But we knew. Everyone knew. That was the moment everything snapped. The media back home stopped begging for diplomacy. The senators shut up. The people didn't want peace anymore. They wanted retribution, and so did I. We launched Operation Emberlight within 48 hours. No secrecy this time, no backdoor tactics. Full-force assault on one of their key research planets, Ireth 4. It was where they developed their neural control systems, their crowd suppression AI, and their mental conditioning programs. The place where they turned compliance into science. We didn't just want to destroy it. We wanted them to feel it. We dropped from orbit like fire. Massive kinetic rods slammed into their planetary shield, punching holes wide enough to fly fleets through. Our drop teams followed immediately. No tanks, no artillery, just squads of armed humans moving like ghosts, clearing buildings, planting charges. I was there on the ground. I needed to be. I kicked down the door to their central archive facility myself. 2 of their scientists stood there, unarmed, trembling. One of them raised his hands. "Please," he said in broken English, "we are not soldiers." Neither were the kids at Vega 9. I didn't say it out loud. I just turned and walked out. Seconds later, the charges lit the sky with the kind of glow only vengeance could create. The entire research complex was reduced to smoking glass. Their records were ash. Their secrets erased. We didn't take prisoners. We didn't apologize. After Emberlight, everything shifted. The Council started cracking, their unity frayed. Some species began pulling their fleets back, questioning the cost of war with Earth. Their arrogance was crumbling, replaced by fear, the kind of fear that comes when a species you mocked is now dismantling your empire piece by piece. But I wasn't finished. Because this wasn't about tactics anymore. This was about memory. About every insult, every restriction, every forced sanction, every time Earth was made to grovel at the feet of civilizations who thought themselves superior. Now they understood something they never did before. Humans don't stop when they're hurt. They stop when they're satisfied. And we weren't even close. After Aerith 4, the Black Fang fleet became a ghost story. Council ships started changing their flight patterns. Convoys began doubling their escorts. Some stations refused to answer hails from unknown ships, terrified they'd pick up the wrong signal and find themselves on the next target list. We didn't strike every time. Sometimes we just watched, let them sweat, let them wonder when the next hammer would fall. That kind of psychological warfare worked better than any laser cannon, and it cost us nothing. But for me, the real war wasn't in the stars. It was inside. I hadn't been back to Earth since the Council's threat. Too dangerous. Too symbolic. If they got wind I was planetside, they'd throw half their fleet at it just for the morale boost. But there were times I sat in the command chamber of the Helldiver, our lead ship, and stared at the hologram of Earth, spinning slowly in a projection that never changed. That was home. The only home I'd ever known. Everything I did out here, every station we torched, every soldier I buried, every enemy I left choking on his last breath. It was for that blue planet. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was preservation. But preservation costs more than just blood. It costs humanity, and I could feel mine slipping. The reports started filtering in. Council retaliation wasn't stopping. It was just getting messier. They couldn't beat us in straight combat anymore. Too risky, too expensive. So they turned to old tactics, quiet ones. They started funding rebel human factions, underground movements on outer colonies, groups that had always hated Earth's centralized control. The weak-willed, the ones who wanted peace even if it meant bending the knee. One of them called themselves the Harmony Accord. Soft name. Pretty slogans. End the war, save humanity, written on all their broadcasts. But behind the scenes, they were feeding the Council information, leaking supply routes, marking targets, traitors. Carter brought me the intel himself. "We found him, boss," he said, tossing a cracked tablet onto the table. "Encrypted messages, coordinates, full data chain. One of the Accord's leaders is a colonel from Earth's own Security Council." I didn't flinch, didn't swear, didn't even blink, just nodded. "Where?" "Outpost Juno. Saturn's third ring. They've got a listening post buried in the ice. Broadcasting from there." "Mobilize the Valkyrie squad. No survivors." Carter didn't argue. Because betrayal from within is worse than any alien threat. The Council we could fight. But our own people? That rot spreads if you don't cut it out immediately. I was on the lead dropship when we hit Juno. The snow screamed under our treads. Ice storms lashed the metal hulls, and our boots crunched over frozen corpses of early settlers who'd once tried to make this place a haven. When we breached the outpost doors, there was no resistance. Just 6 humans in Council-grade armor, hands raised, faces already resigned. One of them stepped forward, bald, clean-cut, dead eyes. "I know who you are," he said. I didn't respond. "You're making it worse," he went on. "Every time you hit them, they hit us back harder. You think you're saving Earth? You're sentencing billions." Still, I said nothing. "I was a father," he added. "I had a wife, kids. You think this war makes you a hero? You're just a murderer." He was right, but he was also a traitor. And I didn't need to explain myself to a man who sold his species to save his own skin. Carter stepped up behind me. "Orders?" I looked the bald man in the eyes. "Burn it all." After Juno, something changed in the Council's broadcasts. They started calling us terrorists, criminals, warlords. The irony was almost laughable. They were the ones who sent a threat across the stars. They were the ones who killed a hospital full of children. And now they wanted to spin the narrative, make us look like the villains. They didn't realize we didn't care what they thought anymore. Humanity had been the villain in every alien textbook since we entered the galactic stage. We were the unpredictable species, the emotional ones, the violent ones. They talked down to us in every trade negotiation, limited our tech rights, censored our AI programs. They feared us because we didn't fit into their perfect, sterile utopia. Now we'd become the nightmare they always accused us of being. And I wasn't apologizing for it. We planned the next strike for a month. Not a raid, not a skirmish, a full-scale assault. Council Central Command, located on the orbital ring of their capital world, Scythar Prime. It was a massive station, layered with defenses, command modules, council chambers, and a live AI node that processed nearly all their military directives. Taking it wouldn't just cripple them. It would send a message so loud the stars would echo with it for centuries. Carter laid out the plan on the table. 3 waves. First, we punch a hole through their shield grid with tactical EMP rods. Second, our infiltration units breach through the lower hangars, plant demolitions. Third, the fleet comes in and levels the place. What about civilians? Asked Lieutenant Graves. Carter glanced at me. I answered flat. They weren't worried about civilians on Vega 9. Graves didn't speak again. There's a line between justice and vengeance, and I wasn't pretending anymore. This was vengeance, cold, calculated, absolute. The attack started at 0300 Galactic Standard Time. We launched from the far side of the asteroid belt, slingshotting through dark space with our emissions dampened. Black Fang ships moved like whispers, silent, unseen, deadly. The EMP rods struck first. 5 of them, each one the size of a bus, wrapped in magnetic shrapnel and laced with ion disruptors. When they hit the outer ring, they shorted half the grid before the council could blink. Then we dropped. Over 100 infiltration units scattered like seeds into the hangar bays, cutting through security systems, wiping AI surveillance clean, and planting charges on key structural nodes. One by one, the lights on Scythar Prime began to die. I was inside the command core when the central alarm started howling. Red lights, sirens, council guards in ceremonial armor rushing the halls, confused, panicked. I shot one through the chest before he could speak. No mercy, no hesitation. At the central chamber, we forced open the blast doors with thermite charges. Inside were 12 council members, tall, smug, draped in symbols of power. One of them, gray-skinned, 6 eyes, stood up as if he still had the upper hand. "You don't understand what you're doing," he said, voice trembling. "This will doom your kind forever." I walked up to the central control node, planted the final charge, turned to face him. "No," I said. "This will finally make us free." The explosion ripped through the chamber like a scream. The entire top half of the orbital ring detonated, our infiltration units evacuated moments before, our fleet pulling back to safe distance as debris rained down like judgment. The Council's military AI was gone. Their chain of command? Broken? Their seat of power? Vaporized. We didn't just win a battle. We shattered an empire. Back aboard the Helldiver, the crew was silent, not cheering, not celebrating. Just silent. They understood what we'd done. We weren't soldiers anymore. We were legends, or monsters, or both. Carter stood beside me, watching the remnants of Scythar Prime burn in orbit. "Think it's over?" he asked. I shook my head. "Number now they'll come with everything they've got." "Good," he muttered. "Let them." Because now they weren't just fighting Earth. They were fighting a species that refused to die. The aftermath of Scythar Prime was silence. No broadcasts, no ultimatums, no retaliation. Just silence. For the first time since this war began, The galaxy held its breath. 1 billion species, hundreds of worlds, and countless outposts all waited to see what came next. The Council's head had been cut off, their fleets scattered, their leadership atomized, and Earth stood there, holding the bloody blade. But silence is never peace. Silence is the sound before the storm. We knew it. Hell, I felt it. And when it came, it didn't start with battleships. It started with lies. News feeds across the neutral systems exploded with stories. Earth annihilates Council peacekeepers. Human terrorists massacre non-combatants. Entire Council family lineages wiped out in secret assault. They played it perfectly. We had no media machine, no public image division, no alien influencers or polished diplomats to spin the truth. All we had were corpses and broken stations. So they rewrote history right under us. By the third week, at least 7 Council-aligned species had declared open war on Earth. Not just Council survivors, not just soldiers, civilians, mercenaries, even traders who had once shaken hands with humans were now pulling triggers, fearing they'd be next. The galaxy didn't see what we'd done as justice. They saw it as genocide. And that changed everything. The next attack wasn't strategic. It was personal. Council loyalists hit New Kyoto, a civilian arcology orbiting Earth. It was supposed to be untouchable, too close to the homeworld, too well defended, too high profile. They hit it anyway. A smuggled grav core detonated in the station's spine during shift change. The explosion didn't just rupture decks. It tore the city open like a fruit. Thousands were sucked into the vacuum. Families, engineers, teachers. My brother's wife was aboard. So was her daughter. My niece. Gone. Just like that. I watched the footage once. Just once. Enough to see the blast, enough to hear the screams cut off mid-sentence. And then I shut it off. Because I knew what I had to do next. Project Scorchlight wasn't on any official Earth database. Even the Black Fang only whispered about it. A prototype weapon. One we were never supposed to use. A gravitational warhead capable of collapsing artificial wormholes and destabilizing quantum drive cores across an entire sector. A one-use monster. It wasn't a missile, it was a message. And I intended to use it. Carter, for once, actually hesitated when I brought it up. You're talking about triggering a chain reaction that could kill millions, Thorne. I looked him dead in the eye. They started this with a threat. We tried warnings. We tried precision. They answered with dead children. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, "Where?" "Delta Corid system," I said. "That's where their new fleet is massing. We detonate Scorchlight, and they lose everything in one shot." He didn't nod. He didn't speak. But he didn't stop me either. We moved fast. The Helldiver carried the warhead, cloaked and hidden behind a field of debris. I handpicked the crew. No rookies, no talkers, just soldiers who understood what this meant. The closer we got to Delta Corid, the more I felt it. Weight. Like the gravity of the thing in our hold wasn't just physical. It was moral. It was humanity's soul ticking down to detonation. As we drifted into the sector's edge, the scanner lit up. Dozens of Council ships. Organized. Ready. They weren't retreating anymore. They were preparing a final strike. One massive wave to end Earth once and for all. I opened the channel. "Begin countdown. Scorchlight detonation in T-minus 5 minutes. The ship fell quiet. No one asked questions. No one prayed. We'd gone past that now. Then, something unexpected. A signal. Weak. Distorted. Faintly human. "Repeat. This is Dr. Elon Miles of the Vega Initiative. Do not detonate. Council is holding over 4,000 human POWs aboard Corid 7. Repeat, thousands of civilians. Prisoners. Children." I froze. My mouth went dry. Carter stared at me. "It could be fake." "Could be." But if it's not, we kill our own." Silence stretched. 1 minute left on the countdown. I closed my eyes. I saw the new Kyoto explosion again. Saw the hollow look in my niece's eyes the last time I spoke to her on a holocall. She'd told me she wanted to be a pilot. I opened my eyes. "Redirect Scorchlight. Recalibrate payload trajectory. We're hitting their fuel command instead. Cripple, not collapse." Carter nodded, fast. "Yes, sir." We lost our clean shot. We lost the chance to end the war with one flash. But we didn't lose ourselves. Not that day. The warhead detonated with a silent fury. The explosion severed 2/3 of their fleet's power grid. Chaos erupted. Ships drifted dead in space. Our strike teams moved in fast, boarded transport carriers, and found them. The prisoners. Human. Weak. Starved. But alive. One of them was Elon Miles. The same man who sent the signal. He was missing an eye. One arm replaced with a crude prosthetic. He looked at me like I was a ghost. "You're real," he whispered. I lifted him onto the evac gurney myself. "We're all real," I said. "And we're not done yet." The war shifted after that. Not because we spared the prisoners, but because the prisoners talked. They told stories. They gave names. They revealed every hidden camp, every secret transfer station, every place the council kept our people like livestock. And with that intelligence, we hit them like a hurricane. We liberated colony after colony, every outpost we took back, every prisoner we rescued. The myth of human brutality started to crack. We weren't monsters. We were survivors. And the galaxy finally saw the truth. The final push came at the edge of the Kara Abyss, a black zone of gravity storms and radiation spikes where the Council had hidden their last bastion, the remnants of their leadership, their archive systems, their fail-safe AI. All of it buried in the dark. We didn't wait. We went in head first. Every ship, every squad, every last soldier willing to bleed. The Helldiver took the lead, and I took the front lines. The Kara Abyss wasn't a place anyone went voluntarily. Even the Council avoided it. Radiation storms, gravity rips, debris clouds thick enough to tear metal like paper. It was hell-given form, floating at the edge of known space, which made it the perfect place for cowards to hide. Our fleet approached the abyss like sharks circling a wounded whale. Over 60 warships, hundreds of drop pods, every fighter and bomber we had left in the Black Fang. If the last of the Council was hiding here, we were dragging them out by their throats. Carter stood beside me in the command deck of the Helldiver, arms folded, jaw tight. "This many ships in a death zone? You sure we'll even make it through?" "Not all of us," I said. "But enough." He didn't argue. He never did anymore. By now he understood what I did. There was no clean ending to this. No neat resolution. Only survival. We hit the outer storm wall and immediately lost 3 ships. One sliced apart by gravitational shear, another pulled into a radiation pocket so dense we couldn't even recover wreckage. A third lost control and drifted, crew screaming in comms as they vanished into the black. No one spoke, no one flinched. We just kept going. Inside the storm, sensors were almost useless. We relied on old-school flight paths, scout drones, and raw instinct. The closer we got to the coordinates our scouts had pulled from captured Council archives, the more the signs became obvious. Artificial formations, dead satellites, drones drifting in perfect circular paths. They were here. We found their last fortress nestled between twin gravitational wells, an orbital citadel shaped like a jagged crescent moon, shielded by radiation fields and armed to the teeth. A voice broke through comms. Female, synthetic, cold. "This is Command Corps 01 of the Galactic Council Remnant. You are entering restricted space. Earth forces will not be granted safe passage." I tapped the mic. "This is Captain Thorne, Black Fang Command. That threat you sent Earth? We're answering it, loud and clear. A pause. Then you will be destroyed. The battle that followed wasn't war. It was butchery. The first wave was fighter squadrons. We used speed to punch holes through their drone net, sacrificing half the pilots just to open paths for our heavy ships. Once the dreadnoughts moved in, it became a game of attrition. For every turret we destroyed, 2 more lit up. Our railguns slammed into their core structures, each impact shaking the bones of their station. I was already in armor before the second layer of shields collapsed. "Drop pods ready," Carter said. "You sure about this?" "Yeah." "Then I'll see you inside." The moment my pod hit the deck of their station, everything blurred. Alarms screamed. The lights flickered. Smoke filled the air, and gravity fluxes made the floor buckle and twist. My boots hit solid ground, plasma rifle humming in my arms, squad behind me. We fought through corridors lined with alien architecture, cold metal, glowing veins of energy, automated turrets popping out of the walls. My armor took 2 hits before we breached the central hall. There, at the heart of it all, sat the Council remnant. 8 beings, the last of the elite. They didn't raise weapons, didn't beg, didn't even speak. They just stared, like they were above it all, even as everything around them burned. One stepped forward, tall, insectoid, mandibles twitching. "You are death," it said. "We knew it when your kind first entered the stars." I lowered my rifle. "Number, I'm not death. I'm the consequence." Then I pulled the trigger. We left none alive. Their AI core tried to purge itself. Self-destruct sequence initiated. Didn't matter. We uploaded a data spike Carter had been saving for this exact moment, one that ripped through their encryption and broadcast their internal files across every open frequency. War crimes, mass executions, genetic experiments on humans and other species alike. Footage, documents, proof. The Council's final lie was buried under their own sins, and for the first time in history, the galaxy saw the truth. We pulled out of the Kara Abyss with a broken fleet. 18 ships left. Half our squadrons dead. Most of our systems fried. But we'd done it. We didn't just win. We exposed them. The aftermath wasn't victory parades. There were no cheers, no celebration, just silence. Again. But this time it wasn't dread. It was respect. The same species who called us savages a year ago now called us survivors. Some reached out. The Varric offered reconstruction supplies. The Irani sent medical teams to help our colonies. Even former council members sent envoys. Silent apologies wrapped in diplomatic gestures. We didn't forget what they did, but we were too tired to stay angry. For now. I sat in my quarters aboard the Helldiver, watching the Earth rise in the viewport. Carter stepped in without knocking. He did that now. "It's over," he said. "Council's done. Galaxy's looking at us differently." I nodded. "Doesn't feel like a win." He shrugged. "Maybe it's not. Maybe there's no such thing." We stood there for a long time. Then he asked, "What now?" I didn't have an answer. Maybe there wasn't one. Maybe you fight because if you don't, someone else decides your fate. Maybe the only choice left is to stand up, even if it costs you everything. Because that's what humanity was built on. Not peace, not diplomacy, but defiance. A month passed, then 2. The galaxy didn't fall apart. It didn't ignite in chaos like the Council loyalists had warned. The opposite happened, actually. Things slowed down. Trade routes reopened. Silence returned to space lanes. The fighting stopped, not because of a treaty, but because no one had the strength to throw another punch. We'd beaten the Council, but it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like stepping out of a burning building with nothing but your scars. Earth was still standing, but scarred. Cities rebuilt, yes. Orbital rings reinforced. Children went back to school. Factories reopened. But there was a quiet undercurrent everywhere, something heavy that lingered in every broadcast, every conversation, every soldier's eyes. We hadn't just fought a war, we'd changed. And no one knew if that change was survival or corruption. I didn't go back to Earth right away. Couldn't. Didn't want to see the statues, the interviews, the politicians patting themselves on the back like they'd led the war effort. They hadn't. They'd watched it happen from bunker screens and reinforced chambers, while people like me buried friends in the dirt of alien moons. I spent my time aboard the Helldiver, overseeing the dismantling of the Black Fang. Yeah, they wanted it gone. They said it was time to transition to peace. Said that keeping it around would send the wrong message to our allies. I didn't argue. Didn't bother telling them that peace doesn't mean anything when your enemies just change uniforms. The Black Fang had done its job. Now they wanted it boxed up, labeled, and forgotten, like the war itself. Carter took it harder than I did. "This fleet kept Earth alive," he snapped in one of the meetings. "You want to turn these ships into recycling scrap just so the galaxy can sleep easier at night?" The Earthside envoy, a clean-shaven bureaucrat with soft hands, didn't even flinch. "We want to move forward. War machines don't help us do that." Carter looked at me. I gave him nothing. Because the truth was, I understood both sides. But understanding doesn't mean agreement. We parked the Helldiver in the solar dry dock station, stripped her down, deactivated the weapon cores. I stood on the empty bridge for a long time after that. It didn't feel like saying goodbye. It felt like burying someone. The kind of goodbye where you know they're not coming back, and a part of you doesn't want them to. The lights dimmed one final time. I walked off the ship alone. My first day back on Earth didn't go how anyone expected. I didn't walk into a parade. I didn't stand on some podium. I went to a graveyard, not a public one. This was off-grid, deep in the Colorado mountains, beneath a tree line that still hadn't been touched by war or steel. It was where the first soldiers of the Black Fang were buried, the ones from the early raids, the quiet battles no one ever wrote stories about. Their headstones weren't fancy, just plates of dark alloy, names etched in hard lines. No flags, no flowers, just memory. I stood in front of a marker with Captain J. Ellsworth written across the top. He was the first man who followed me when the Council sent that threat. Didn't even ask questions. Just packed his gear and said, "Let's go kill the bastards." He died on Aerith 4. A shard of blast steel cut through his chest. I held him as he bled out, and he didn't scream once. I stood there and said nothing. Because what the hell do you say to a man like that? Thanks? Sorry? Number, you just stand. You remember, and you promise not to forget. That night, I got a message. Encrypted, old code, Black Fang frequency. Only one man could have sent it. Carter. His voice came through rough, like he hadn't slept in days. Thorne, you need to see this. Attached was a scan, a satellite image taken from deep space sensors, not Earth, not a council world, but a new structure, orbital, massive, triangular in shape. No known language markings, no planetary registration. Not council, not Earth, something else. Below the image was a single word, unidentified. My gut clenched. I called Carter. He answered on the first ping. "Where is it?" I asked. "Outer reach, past Helion Drift. Nobody's gone that far since before the war." "Who sent the scan?" "That's the thing," he said. "It came from a probe we launched 3 years ago. During the first phase of the Council standoff. We assumed it was destroyed. But the signal came back through one of the old relays last night." "What's inside?" "No clue, but it's broadcasting something now. Constant loop. Same 3 words." "What words?" He didn't answer right away. Then, slowly, Earth is next. I sat there, silent, the weight settling in my bones like it had so many times before. I'd seen what happens when the powerful feel threatened. I'd seen what warnings look like in this galaxy. And I knew one thing for sure. The war wasn't over. We'd just killed the wrong enemy first. The next day, I went back to the Defense Council chambers for the first time. Not to request anything. To demand it. The same diplomats who once begged me to show restraint now looked at me like I was death in uniform. Because I was. And I still wore the scars to prove it. I put the scan on the holotable. "This," I said, "is not Council tech." They nodded nervously. "This is not friendly. This is not ours. This isn't political." More nods. I leaned forward. "This is coming." Silence. Then one of them, the soft-voiced advisor from the East Bloc, said, "We're not ready for another war." I looked him in the eye. Number, but that doesn't matter, because ready or not, they are. By the end of that week, Earth had reactivated 5 Black Fang ships under recon threat protocols. I was handed full command again. Carter was already waiting at the dock when I arrived. "Thought you'd show up," he said, grin crooked. "Thought you'd be dead," I replied. "Yeah, well," he said, "death's too scared of me lately." We stood together and stared at the Helldiver 2, still under construction, still ugly as sin, but bristling with new tech Earth engineers hadn't even dared build before the war. "This one's not for revenge," I said quietly. "No," Carter agreed. "It's for survival. Because we both understood something the politicians never did. The galaxy doesn't want peace, it just wants silence. Silence from anything that doesn't bow, doesn't obey, doesn't submit. Earth doesn't do silence. We do fire." The Helldiver 2 launched in silence. No fanfare, no media buzz, no political ceremony. The public didn't know yet. Just whispers, leaks, a few conspiracy forums lighting up with grainy images of something big moving through the outer orbital layer. Most assumed it was cleanup from the war. They were wrong. We weren't cleaning up the past. We were flying straight into the future. And this time, there weren't any second chances. The new Black Fang was leaner. Fewer ships, tighter crews, upgraded cores. The scars of war had taught Earth something valuable. Strength wasn't in numbers, but in resolve. In the ones who don't break, even when the stars fall. Carter and I stood at the helm, staring at the nav map. The probe signal still pulsed from beyond the Helion drift. Faint, steady, and repeating the same 3 words. "Earth is next. Earth is next. Earth is next." "Signal's still loopin'," Carter muttered, hands tapping commands over the nav glass. "But it's off." "Off how?" He pulled up the waveform. "It's not a voice, not a language. It's tonal, layered, artificial, but not like Council AI. Closer to biomechanical code. You think it's alive? I think it wants us to think it's alive." I didn't respond. Just watched the pulse blink. The drift wasn't a place anyone visited without consequence. The radiation there warped long-range sensors. It bent gravitational rules. Some ships that went in never came back. The ones that did, they came back wrong. Not broken, not damaged. Just different. One pilot returned with his brain burned out of his skull, but his body still flying the ship, manually, for 4 hours. Another vessel came back missing all the crew, but broadcasting a laugh track, non-stop, for 72 hours straight. No one knew who built the Helion relay system buried in there. No one wanted to find out. Until now. It took us 6 days to reach the outer rim of the drift. By the second day, communications started glitching. By the fourth, our AI navigation assistant, DAWN, stopped speaking. Just cut off mid-sentence. We tried to reboot her, but she never came back online. The engineers said her core was intact. She just refused to respond. That's when I gave the order. Lock the bridge. Limit systems to manual. Full crew weapons ready at all times. No one goes anywhere alone. Carter didn't even blink. By then, everyone felt it. The air was wrong. Even in full environmental control, the recycled oxygen started to smell metallic, sharp, like blood. And the dreams... God help me, the dreams. I saw Earth burning. But not from bombs, not from council ships. I saw it consumed, bit by bit. Not fire, eaten, not screaming silence. And at the center of it, something massive, something old, watching, feeding. We made contact on day 7. The signal stopped, just stopped. For a full minute, we drifted in utter silence. Then the transmission changed. New words, a voice, this time, human, clear, familiar. I recognized it instantly. It was mine. "This is Captain Thorne, Black Fang Command," it said. "You're too late. It's already begun." My blood went cold. The crew froze. Carter stared at me, eyes wide. "That's not a recording." "No." "Then how?" "It's bait." He nodded once, silent. We were dealing with something that could mimic us, access old records, copy voices, trick the human brain into trusting what it heard. This wasn't war, it was infiltration. Then we saw it, the structure, just beyond the drift. Massive, triangular, darker than space itself, like light didn't touch it. It didn't orbit anything, didn't drift. It just sat there, waiting. The closer we got, the more tech started failing. Internal clocks looped, cameras glitched and bled static. At one point, one of the engineers walked straight into the wall, kept walking even after his nose broke and blood poured down his face. Like his mind didn't register the collision. I had to personally restrain him. He screamed for 2 minutes, then went silent. Hasn't spoken since. We launched a recon drone. What came back wasn't a feed. It was a message, written, in English. "You survived your own extinction. You killed your masters. Now you belong to us." There were no ships, no movement, nothing that looked like a fleet. But the threat was clear. They weren't coming for a war. They were coming to assimilate. Inside the drift, we found a satellite, a derelict station made of council and human parts, a twisted Frankenstein's corpse of tech fused together. It pulsed with a soft glow, and something about it made my skin crawl. I took a team to board it. 3 men, 2 women, all veterans, all quiet. We moved through the halls slowly, guns raised, lights cutting through thick mist that wasn't supposed to be there. It clung to us, made every breath taste like copper. The walls were covered in carvings, not language, not writing, patterns, spirals, grids, human handprints etched in repeating sequences. And in the central chamber, our worst fear made real. A human body, still breathing, still warm, but hollowed out, eyes open, pupils dilated, no brain activity, no heartbeat, no soul. Like something was keeping the shell alive, just to study it. One of the team whispered, "This isn't science." He was right. It was art. Predator art. We pulled out and burned the station. No salvage, no analysis. Just fire. I issued the order to return to Earth space, but it was already too late. On our return trip, we intercepted 3 more signals, all mimicking Earth channels. One from an old emergency beacon at a decommissioned lunar base. One from a Martian science vessel declared missing 5 years ago. And one from inside Earth's orbit. The enemy hadn't just discovered us. They'd already entered. Carter met me on the bridge the moment we crossed into safe space. "Earth Command wants a briefing," he said. "They're calling it a potential deep space psychological warfare threat." I just stared at him. Then at the pulsing signal on our screen. "It's not psychological warfare," I said. "It's not an enemy that wants our territory, or our surrender, Or our tech. Then what the hell does it want? I looked him dead in the eyes. Us. Earth Command didn't believe us. Not at first. They called it a hoax, a malfunction, deep space psychosis. They ran Carter through 4 debriefings, scanned the Helldiver 2 for viral traces, scrubbed our black box recordings for AI corruption, and when they couldn't explain it, they did what bureaucrats always do. They filed it under anomaly. I didn't argue, I didn't scream, because I knew what was coming. You don't scream at a flood. You prepare for the drowning. The first incident hit 2 weeks later. A civilian transport, the Lavender Reach, coming in from Titan went dark. No distress signal, no collision report. Just silence. Recovery vessels found it drifting near the Jupiter Gate. Lights still on, engines still humming. No one aboard, no signs of a struggle, no corpses. Just gone. They sent in hazmat teams. They walked the corridors, and they found words etched into the walls, carved deep into the steel with fingernails or blades or something else. We are listening. The silence is watching. You are already inside. Earth Command tried to hide the report. Didn't work. It leaked within 3 days, and the panic started. Colonies started reinforcing their borders. Mining outposts on Europa and Callisto went dark voluntarily. Families pulled their kids out of orbital academies. People stopped sleeping. Paranoia spread faster than any council propaganda ever had. And then came the mirror event. That's what they called it. A surveillance station above Mars picked up a ship. A perfect replica of the Helldiver 2, identical down to the scorch marks on the hull and the serial numbers burned into the wings. Only one problem. We were already docked on Earth. The copy drifted silently toward the upper orbital layer, didn't respond to hails, didn't acknowledge flight protocols. Then, without warning, it fired. One shot. Pulse beam, straight into the station. 16 dead, 9 more gone without a trace. And before Earth Command could retaliate, the replica warped, vanished in a way no known human or council tech could explain. Not a jump, not a burn. Just gone. Like it never existed. That's when Earth Command finally called me. I walked into the war room the next morning. Same place they played the Council's first threat. Only this time, the screen didn't show an alien diplomat. It showed our own face. My face. Same scars, same uniform, same voice, too. "This is Captain Thorne, Black Fang Command," it said, speaking from the screen in a slow, dead rhythm. "I bring the only truth left in this galaxy. There is no peace. There is no war. There is only consumption. Join or disappear." Then the screen glitched into static. For 10 seconds, no one in the room moved. Then the president, hollow-eyed and decades older than the last time I saw her, leaned forward and whispered, "What do we do?" "We burned them." Operation Hellwake was never officially sanctioned. It didn't need to be. Everyone knew what it was the second I put the name on the table. Earth had been reactive for too long, waiting for threats, responding after the bleeding started. Not this time. This time, we were going first. Our goal: trace the synthetic entity, whatever the hell it was, back to its source. Not the drift, not the wreckage, the core. If it had a home, a nest, a node, it would be buried deep in the dark, beyond the charts, past the silence. We were going to find it, and we were going to kill it, even if we died doing it. The fleet we assembled wasn't big, couldn't be. Signals were compromised, communications hacked. Half of Earth's AI networks were now suspected to be listening posts. We took only analog ships, manual pilots, old-school reactors, steel-plated hulls with no soft points. We flew blind. Untraceable. The way hunters used to move before humanity had maps. Days bled into nights, though neither existed in space. And then, the signal returned. We didn't find it. It found us. We woke to alarms blaring across all decks, every screen filled with one phrase. So close now, no breach, no code, just a voice, in every ear, even with the radios off. Carter ripped his headset off. "It's not in the ship," he hissed. "It's in us." That was when the crew started seeing them. Shapes in the corners, figures in the reflection of visors, shadow copies of themselves moving out of sync. Whispers that said things no one else heard. I had to isolate 3 soldiers in cryo for their own safety. One tried to cut open his own chest to let it out. Another tried to eject the entire bridge crew. They weren't sick. They were infected. Not physically, mentally, spiritually. Whatever this thing was, it didn't invade like a virus. It mimicked. It wore you, bit by bit, until you didn't know who was real anymore. We reached the black node 2 days later. A sphere. Floating. Not made of metal. Not anything we could scan. Just absence. The sensors said it didn't exist. Our eyes said otherwise. It pulsed. It breathed. It was alive. And from it came the final signal. You survived the council. You became what they feared. You think this made you strong, but you are still incomplete. Join the rest of yourselves. We are what comes next. We are what comes after you. I gave the order. All ships, all missiles, fire everything. We rained hell, kinetic rods, fusion torpedoes, pulse beams, old-school nukes. The void lit up with our fury. We screamed our answer in fire, and when it was done, the sphere still floated there. Unharmed, unshaken, unimpressed. It didn't need shields. It didn't need to defend. It had already won. The crew looked to me, but I had nothing left to say. So I walked to the drop chamber, loaded my armor, loaded my sidearm. Carter stopped me. "You're not going alone." I looked at him, and for the first time in years, I smiled. "Thought you hated speeches." "I do," he said. "Let's skip the one where you die alone." We dropped into the node. Through it, inside it. The moment we crossed the barrier, the world changed. No walls, no gravity, just memories, bleeding, twisting, rewritten. Carter screamed and collapsed. I felt it too. My thoughts weren't mine. I saw my mother's face, my niece, the men I buried, the enemies I executed, but they weren't memories. They were lies, replays, warped and twisted, made to break me, to unravel me, to remake me. I pressed forward, toward the heart, and I found it. A reflection. Of me, not armor, not flesh, but thought, a perfect blank copy, waiting. "It's easier," it whispered in my voice, "to let go, to become part of the silence." I raised my sidearm. It smiled. "You can't kill thought." "Maybe not," I said, "but I can still choose mine." And I pulled the trigger. The bullet didn't hit. It ended. The reflection shattered. The node screamed. Not sound, not pressure, grief. I felt it crack, felt the void break apart. The mimicry failed, and it began to burn. Carter's voice came through static. "Thorne, you did it." But I couldn't answer, because I wasn't there anymore. I was nowhere, everywhere, watching the last silence collapse. Not as a soldier, not as a killer, but as what remained. I woke up on Earth 6 days later, in a hospital with no name, wires in my arms, scars on my chest, alone. The war was over, for real this time. Carter made it back. The Helldiver 2 didn't. They say the node is gone, nothing left but echoes. But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still hear that voice. "You survived, but you are still incomplete." Maybe that's what humanity is. Incomplete, always clawing forward, always defying extinction by becoming something worse. But for now, we're free. And that's enough. Because they came to silence us. And we answered with vengeance. We were born in the dirt, raised in the fire, and tempered in the war of stars. We are human, and we are not done yet.